Hello everyone, and welcome back to another HUFO, the series where I give you my honest, unfiltered opinions on a variety of subjects that you ask me. To get involved in a future one of these, make sure you follow me over on Instagram and keep an eye on my stories. We'll kick off today with a nice wholesome one. Leo Peterson 333 asks about my funny experiences in music. I'll give you the first one that comes to mind. A couple years ago, I was playing with a free-form improvised instrumental funk band. It was an especially fun project. One of us would start out by playing a riff, and then we would all just jam on it and see where it went. Often these songs would last 20 minutes or more. We recorded one jam session. I'll post a link to it in the description. It's over on my second channel. Well, anyways, we only ever played one gig, opening for a rock band at the local university bar. After the show, a girl came up to me and she said, "You guys were really great, but that was really boring." That's it. That's the story. I found her blunt delivery rather amusing, and looking back, I can see that the music we were making was definitely more fun to be a part of than it ever would have been to listen to. There was also a time with a different band where the percussionist went on a drug-fueled rampage and lit a broom on fire in the kitchen of the house of the kind folks who let us stay with them. But experiencing that was more horrifying than it was funny. Finn S5 asks my HUFO on how to deal with unmotivated bandmates. Here's a frustrating lesson I've learned in my time both teaching and playing in bands. Motivation is something you can't inspire. It's something that comes from within. You can definitely provide encouragement and resources for a motivated individual, but if they don't have that, your time is better spent elsewhere. If you're dealing with unmotivated band members, you need to sit down with the group and figure out what the band's goals are and if they line up with your goals as a musician. If they do not, then your time and creative energy is better spent somewhere else. And if there's one guy who's holding back the rest of the band, then they need to go. You need to find people who want the same thing you do and move on musically from those that don't. Now, this can get complicated, especially if you're good friends with the undermotivated individuals. I've always cared more about my music than making sure I was playing in a band with my friends. Ideally, these two things will overlap, but that's not always the case, and when push comes to shove, you gotta make a choice. Maddie Hellstrom asks, what exactly is supravertical harmony in the Lydian chromatic concept? Let me tell you a little story about Mr. Guitar, Chet Atkins. Whenever anybody would ask him what the Nashville sound is, he would jangle the coins in his pocket and say, "That's what it sounds like, the sound of money." So to answer your question, Maddie, it's the opposite of that. But my honest answer is, I have no idea. I tend to gravitate more towards the open chords and pentatonic scales side of the spectrum. Hazamal 2002 asks my HUFO on should the bad actions taken by an artist influence us to not listen to them? Basically, if someone is a terrible person, should we still be able to enjoy their art? I've given a lot of thought to this. I don't think there's an easy answer. I think it's very subjective and changes case to case. Part of me thinks we should be able to separate the human from the art. If a terrible person came up with the cure for cancer, surely we would still use it to help other people. But the difference with art is that something like music is a much more personal reflection of someone than, say, a scientific accomplishment. So for me, I kind of find myself going back and forth. There are a lot of bands that I love from the 60s and 70s that did pretty unacceptable things based on today's standards that were much more acceptable back then. Am I going to change the radio station when they come on? Probably not. But what if somebody did something significantly more terrible but still made great music? Michael Jackson comes to mind. If what people are saying about him is true, and the only reason I use the word if here is because I haven't seen the new documentary, I don't know enough about the situation to make any sort of definitive statement. But he may have done some awful, unforgivable things. He also made some of the greatest pop music of all time. I think for me personally, I can still enjoy Billie Jean while saying he may have been a terrible person, though I understand if that's not the case for everyone. I also think it matters to me that he's dead. It's much easier to separate the man from the music when the man no longer exists. But what if it's a current artist who did something that crossed the line? I personally don't think I'd be able to enjoy or support any of their new stuff, but if their old stuff already occupied a special place in my heart, I don't think that that would necessarily go away. But there's a lot of subjectivity here. Where do we each draw the line? How much do we feel like accusations need to be proven? And if we're being totally honest with ourselves, how much does our love of their music influence this stuff? These kind of questions depend on personal morals and beliefs. My honest opinion is I'm still trying to come to terms with it myself. On to something a bit lighter. Boucher Emile asks, how do I feel about 5/4 and 7/8? I don't feel great about them. If a song isn't in 3/4 or 4/4, I struggle. I don't listen to much music in odd time signatures and have never really practiced it. I do remember one time in an improv class in university, the instructor had us playing jazz standards in 7, and it was a mess on my end. Those rhythms just don't feel natural to me, but when I come across a song where it works, it's totally cool. Songs like Take 5, Rapunzel by Dave Matthews Band, and Money by Pink Floyd come to mind. The only time I'll ever use these things is adding or taking away a beat in a bar. I think I've only ever written one song in an odd time signature, and that was for a theory class. Maybe it's time for me to try again. And last for today, Juan Cruz Dolb asks, what would I do if I couldn't play guitar? Well, let's assume if I couldn't play guitar, I couldn't make music. First of all, I'd probably get really down and then burn through my savings trying to make myself feel better. Eventually, I'd realize I need to get it together and get myself a job. However, without being able to play music, I have significantly fewer employable skills. I think I might be able to leverage what I've done up to now to open up other doors in the music industry. That could come in the form of working with a musical equipment brand on their social media strategy. I'm not totally sure, but I think something would come up. Alternatively, I would love to write for a comedy TV show. I feel like I'd be good at it if I put the effort into it. However, I have been known to think I'm funnier than I actually am. Anyways, that's it for HUFO number 7. Thank you to everybody who submitted a topic, and if you want to get involved in a future one of these, make sure you follow me over on Instagram. My handle is samuraiguitarist, all one word. I've got shirts available over at www.shopsamuraiguitarist.com. If you want to check out another HUFO, you can hit that link up there. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. An extra big thank you to everyone who supports my channel through Patreon. Thank you all for watching. I'm Samurai Guitarist, and I will see you again soon.